We are the Lab Doctors. I'm Amanda.
I'm Dorothy.
And I'm Zhao Yong.
We are biomedical researchers who realized we still have a lot to learn about science.
So why not join us on this quest?
So it's raw foods. In case you missed it, Today We Learn episodes are the one where we ask each other random questions and try to figure it out with what we already know. But make sure you stay tuned to the second part where we come back together after doing some research to tell you what we have learned.
So today's topic is whether we can eat raw pork. And I thought of that question because I was actually watching some YouTube video on like two funny people. And they actually ate raw pork, and this is a delicacy. I don't know if it's considered a delicacy, but it's called Mett. M-E-T-T. And this is a food found in Germany. And it's made out of minced raw pork, served with some garlic on top or like some salt and pepper. It's like completely raw.
Is it the grade of pork? Like, you know how there's normal salmon and sushi-grade salmon? In the sense that you can eat it raw, do you think it's that?
Wait, what's the difference between sushi-grade salmon versus normal salmon?
I thought that one is just how
taste,
nice the salmon is. How many like white lines there are on the salmon.
Oh my god, I thought it was whether it's safe to eat it raw versus... I think it is.
I thought it was all about texture.
No, I mean like you go to some restaurants and then they are just lousy sashimi, I don't think it's not edible.
No, I don't think you can just eat the salmon that like they sell at the market as
Is
sushi. I mean, that's what I've been doing my whole life. If I want to eat raw salmon, I will buy sushi grade salmon.
Okay.
Atas.
I have no idea.
No, I think it's a safety thing.
No, I always thought it was a Wagyu steak versus steak kind of thing.
I actually have no idea.
Yeah, I thought it's the Wagyu.
Yeah.
Just A5 or something
Yeah,
grade.
exactly.
It's just a grading thing, I
I thought it was a grading. I honestly don't know. We can research and find out more, I guess.
Oh my goodness, I'm a bit
Mind
mind
blown.
blown. Yeah. So
Yeah, but-
actually, what's the issue with raw food?
So for fish, no, salmonella's not from fish.
No, I think you can get it from most
Anything,
raw
right?
foods. Yeah, because
I just remember salmonella, there's the word salmon, but it's not like a salmon thing. It's a chicken thing, right? Like if you're undercooked, you eat raw chicken.
I think it
And
happens
eggs, mostly?
So it happens most often in chicken, although I'm not sure why. But it comes from the bacteria. The genus is Salmonella, if I'm not wrong. And then it's a type of bacteria that lives in the gut. So when foods, especially raw foods, get contaminated by this bacteria, it can cause the Salmonella infections.
But you can inactivate it with heat, which is why
Yeah,
people always
most of
say
the time.
cook your eggs. I mean, don't eat raw eggs, that kind of
Yeah.
thing, because there's a risk of salmonella.
Yeah, exactly.
What other risks do you all think there are? Like other than salmonella, like why can't we just eat these raw meats?
Oh.
What other diseases do you know of?
So I took a course. They did talk about, I mean, if we believe in evolution, which I do, as humans evolved and we learned how to cook food, we stopped having the physiological responses to
So
be able
our
to
gut is
respond
weak
to,
now?
to
Our gut or our
raw
immune
food.
system?
No, it's just more optimized. So it's not necessarily, I mean, I guess you can think of it as it's weaker, the whole how come Singaporeans get food poisoning more often because, our food is very clean and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so in a sense, we can think about it this way, where our bodies are just more accustomed to cook food already. And we can't really process raw food as well. So nutrition-wise, I believe raw food gives us way less nutrition than cooked food. And our
Why?
bodies are less able to absorb it.
Why would raw food give us less nutrition than cooked food? Won't
No.
cooking-
It's not that it gives us... I mean, there's the whole... Sometimes when you cook stuff, it
lose-
releases certain things.
Yeah,
it makes
like your
certain
vegetables.
nutrition... certain stuff more nutritious. But there's also... our bodies just cannot absorb the nutrients provided by raw food.
Oh.
Yeah, and that's why there was this period of time, the whole raw food diet craze, where people started eating raw food and they are losing weight. Yeah, but they're losing weight because they're malnourished, not because, the raw food actually does stuff lah. Yeah.
Okay, like your body absorbs less stuff.
Yeah. If I'm not wrong, we need to
To
double
check that
confirm
out.
this. Yeah.
I mean, that's what this whole episode is about anyway, right?
I guess the other thing is that then why is sushi? Yeah, like we mentioned just now, there's the sushi grade salmon versus
salmon.
non-sushi
Yeah.
grade salmon, which I didn't know exists. So why is it that certain types of sushi are safe, and why is it that some sushis aren't, some raw fish aren't?
Is it cause like where they farm the fish, so they grow the salmon? The environment where they grow the salmon in is probably a fish farm, and all the conditions where the fish are in, the water is clean, whatever food they provide the fish with is clean, and therefore the fish is clean, kind of thing.
And I think it is also practices on how they harvest, in the sense, the fish. So from when you kill it to when you pack it and everything. I think all that matters as well, right?
So
it
they
should.
sterilize the knife.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly,
makes
some
sense to me.
butchers are, if you think about it, they don't really wash their knives after each butchering, but it's an efficiency thing.
Or like they
right?
don't cross-contaminate their meats
In a
Yeah.
sense, yeah.
other kinds of meat.
So is
Yeah.
that what sushi grade
I mean,
salmon
if
is?
we are really talking about salmonella by itself, then yeah, it makes sense if the post-processing of the meat, if it is cleaner, then there's less likelihood of contamination, and yeah, there's this.
Either way, I think a restaurant serving sushi, like in Japan, would just focus on sushi and other kinds of raw fish. So it's probably very,
Very
clean.
clean. Yeah. I mean, I also have this theory that I label the wasabi theory.
Wasabi.
Wasabi theory.
Oh, wasabi.
Which is a bit about what Amanda talked about beforehand, about how garlic cures the food. I'm thinking wasabi itself also kind of
Maybe.
sterilize the food.
Wasabi is.
It's a type of, is it pickled? Is it some radish?
I thought it was radish. Sorry.
Horseradish?
When you said pickle, I was like,
Pickled- is it pickled radish?
Is it pickled radish? But it's
No,
It's
it's,
some type of radish.
I mean the real wasabi is horseradish, is it?
Horseradish,
yes,
yeah.
yes.
So, and that's the thing, if I'm not wrong, wasabi has horseradish peroxidase, which is a type of
Wow,
enzyme, protein, that actually kills a lot of bacteria.
All I'm thinking about now is series of unfortunate
Exactly,
events.
that's where I got it.
Right?
Yeah.
So there was the outbreak of some bacterium.
Fungus.
Fungus, yeah. And then the cure is to eat anything with horseradish in
Horseradish.
it.
Yeah.
Oh.
Which one of it is wasabi? I mean, it's a TV show.
But how much wasabi can you eat?
I have no idea because, okay, personally, I mean, when I was younger, I didn't really like wasabi because I can't take the spice. And then I feel like whenever I eat sushi, I would have stomach troubles a lot more without wasabi versus with wasabi. And I'm like,
Oh.
oh, is that a thing? Yeah.
But that
So
was when you were
I'm not
young.
too sure. I mean, because I eat wasabi now and I didn't in the past.
You
I
should
mean,
do the experiment yourself.
Yeah, maybe I
Maybe
should.
like before we come back in the part 2.
Like eat sushi without wasabi first
Yeah.
and then with wasabi and see.
Go
see
buy the
difference.
worst sushi you can find in the supermarket.
The
So you know it's
non-sushi
like-
grade.
No, but the thing is,
Give
I mean,
myself
if you buy the
salmonella.
non-sushi grade, then yeah. But I think if you buy any sushi from the supermarkets
Yeah.
in Singapore, I think
It should
it's
be-
generally
yeah,
quite
it should
safe.
be safe,
Even if
right?
you buy the like cheap ones,
Yeah.
I think you're good.
Yeah. So
It's just food standards here and in developed countries.
yeah. So I don't know. This is just my personal experience. Not sure whether or not it's real or fake.
But isn't it interesting like how, you know, our stomach, they are at pH 2. That means they are very acidic. We produce hydrochloric acid in our stomach. And that's not enough to kill all these bacteria that...
Yeah.
Why? Like...
I mean, the bacteria have to survive. So from an evolutionary standpoint, surely they have to evolve to be able to survive these acidic conditions, right?
Right, so that's the scary thing about bacteria,
Certain bacteria,
as a whole.
yeah.
Like it becomes resistant over time, and that's why you cannot anyhow take your antibiotics and stuff
Yeah.
like that.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Antibiotic.
Always finish your course of antibiotics.
Yeah.
And
Don't
don't-
stop taking it when you feel better.
Yeah.
And don't take antibiotics for viral infections and stuff like
Yeah.
that. But that, anyway, that's sidetracking. But then let's move on to like, can pregnant women then eat all this raw food?
So I guess this is not really a theory, but I mean, you've definitely heard that, pregnant women can't drink alcohol, they shouldn't
Yeah.
smoke. And one of the things is they shouldn't eat raw food. And I think it's because sushi, besides the bacteria and parasites that might be in raw food like we were talking about, there might be low levels of mercury, which could affect the baby. So why all this might be dangerous for pregnant women is it could be passed on to the baby.
Yeah.
So other than that, also pregnant women have a weaker immune system. So I don't really know why, but I'm pretty sure it has something to do with growing a literal parasite in you. So your immune system has to be weaker, so they are more prone to infection, which is why it's very dangerous for pregnant women to get a flu or especially like COVID as well. They are just more susceptible to these infections because their immune system might not be as strong as it is when they are not pregnant. So I think if you can avoid just not eating raw food, then just do it because of all these things.
Oh, so not necessarily harming the baby per se.
Both.
Oh, both.
So if the pregnant woman if the pregnant mom has any issues, the baby will be affected also. So it's a twofold thing. It might affect the baby because of all the bacteria and parasites, but it might also affect the mom and the immune system.
Okay, but I guess it's like really a good practice thing. I mean, if you are really careful, you still want to have like your sushi cravings, then you just have to be really careful.
So nowadays I think it's advised that you try and stay away from sushi as much as possible, but you can eat a bit.
Oh.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's your life, you do whatever you want. You are responsible for this kid.
But you wouldn't drink alcohol when you are pregnant, right? So
but I mean people who drink alcohol,
some people still do.
Yeah, and their baby comes out fine, so
do they? What is the effect of
no, but fetal alcohol syndrome is a thing.
Oh yeah. I've heard of fetal alcohol syndrome, but I don't know what exactly it is.
Is it?
It also depends on your body. So like how do we know how good our alcohol dehydrogenase is at breaking down the alcohol?
Oh yeah, and usually Asians have that problem, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But that's another topic for another day. It's interesting.
Again,
it's interesting.
So I think sushi is safe to a point. But if sushi is so safe, then why can't pregnant people eat it? So I think there is a balance that has to be struck. You can't eat too much.
Yeah, weighing the risks versus the benefits. If you can avoid eating, might as well just avoid it because
because there's a baseline that our body, there's a baseline or like a threshold that our body can get rid of the bacteria or the parasites, but you don't want to push your body to the limit and then actually have any issues.
Definitely, yeah.
Okay, how about let's go into, so we know that we can't eat raw pork and chicken, but we can eat beef raw, sushi raw. What about like raw insects and vegetables? I mean, vegetables, salad, like people eat it raw all the time. So why do y'all think y'all have any theories on like
why salads are generally
vegetables?
Vegetables. I don't have much, but I'm thinking certain vegetables, when you cook them, like I was mentioning before, when you cook certain foods, there are changes to the foods because of heat. Yeah, and maybe that's why they taste better. Or they kill off things, but I don't really have anything about raw vegetables.
Are there any vegetable that you cannot eat raw?
Okay, so I don't know if this is a thing, but for me, the vegetables that I eat raw versus the ones that I don't eat raw are the ones that taste gross raw. So I don't know if you all have ever tried eating broccoli or cauliflower raw.
No, I don't.
I can't stand cauliflower raw, that's for sure.
But you can't eat it raw, it's so hard. How do you bite it?
No, as in the whole when you cook it but not well, then there's this weird taste to cauliflower.
Yes.
I can't take that.
That also, So if broccoli is not cooked through and cauliflower, there's a weird raw taste.
There's a raw taste, yeah.
So is it just because it's gross?
In fact, I think foods being gross might be just your body's natural reaction to, is your body evolved to become
which is
like
part of
rejecting bad foods because they're just not good for you. Like bad tasting foods.
So maybe our body prefers the taste of cooked foods because we prefer the taste of cooked foods.
But you know how some vegetables, they say you shouldn't boil it for too long, or if you can eat it raw because that's
the nutrients.
The nutrients will not, like they say when you boil vegetables, maybe the nutrients will seep into the water. And then if you throw away the water and just eat the vegetables, you're not actually getting as much vitamin and minerals from the vegetables as if you eat it raw.
Yeah.
So why the discrimination between certain vegetables?
In fact, latching on to that point, I think some vegetables, if you don't boil them, in fact, they are less nutritious. I think spinach is one of them because They have this weird acid, folic acid? I can't remember. Type of acid in them that when you boil, it gets rid of it, but you can't boil too much because if you boil too much, then it loses its nutrients. That's why I really hate spinach. But it's apparently very good for you.
I love spinach. It makes you
it's so
strong.
I think I'm neutral.
No, you
Popeye.
just throw it in the boiling water for 30 seconds and you're done.
Yeah, but that's my point. If it's not 30 seconds, it's like, if I go to something else.
What are you
then you
doing
set
for
a
30
timer.
seconds?
You are
Because
trained to do experiments with timers.
Going back to the point.
I think it has to do with whether it's good for you. I really think
I
so.
personally just don't really like spinach. That's why I stopped the whole spinach smoothie thing.
Clearly, I'm the spinach fan here. I'm eating spinach for lunch.
Oh,
So.
I just thought of something. Maybe we can eat vegetables versus like certain meats raw is cause animals eat stuff and they might eat anything dirty and that gets into your body and
Also, this
infects
was my
your
whole theory
cells.
about raw beef and raw pork. Is the reason why we can't eat raw pork because pigs are disgusting. And you know, cows eat.
Pigs are clever.
I mean, I'm not no discounting that pigs are clever. But cows eat grass and pigs eat, I don't know,
What do
feed.
pigs eat?
Pigs eat.
I mean, pigs in farms eat feed,
Yeah.
which I don't know what feed is.
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't think it's as natural as grass, right?
True, maybe, possibly.
And then,
What about chicken? Chicken eat worm.
and feed. Oh my goodness, I don't know what
Don't
feed
cows
is.
eat feed?
Don't they
Or
eat-
They just.
Grass?
I know
I mean, that's
the
grass-fed
best grade.
cows. That's why there's grass-fed cows.
Oh, then there's
versus-
grain-fed cows.
Yeah.
So-
and then there's massaged cows.
And then there's
Give you your-
cows that drink sake.
Oh, but you know how the whole thing where cows are the animals that have 4 stomachs, right?
Yeah.
So is it because they've digested and broken down everything? So
Maybe.
How many stomachs do pigs have? One?
one?
One.
Is it one? Is it
One.
just the one?
I don't know. I've never dissected.
Yeah, but that's the thing, right? Because cows are adapted to eat grass, and grass needs a lot of post-eating digestion to extract all the nutrients.
That's why they have 4 stomachs.
That's why they have, 4 stomachs.
Does it
but
pass through all 4 stomachs?
I think so, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
it
Then
passes
maybe
through
yes.
all 4.
It spend a longer time in the...
Yeah.
Stomach.
And that's why cows are also so big.
What about elephant? Okay, sidetracking. But
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. I've never eaten elephant.
and raw insect?
Can you eat elephant? Do people eat elephant?
I'm pretty sure someone eats elephants out there. But what about raw insect?
Raw insects. I think raw insects, we were talking about one day during lunch how Bear Grylls just eats
Randomly
raw
picks up
anything.
raw
Yeah.
things to eat.
And on Survivor, like the show, the reality,
Survivor's awesome.
they eat like raw insects
Oh,
also.
and Fear Factor as
Fear
well.
factor.
I guess.
Fear factor.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe in small amounts is fine. I mean, your body can get rid of that amount of
I
dirt
think,
if there's even dirt.
yeah, I think it's purely about the level of contaminant.
And not the insect itself.
Yeah, probably not the insect itself, unless it's poisonous.
That means like contaminants on the outside of the insect. Whereas then when you talk about meats, it's like, it's inside.
So if you wash,
I mean, for
If
me,
you
it's
wash
also
the
the
live
outside.
insect.
eat it, it should be safer.
Soap it, bathe it.
I mean, we are not advocates of animal torture. So are we going with the idea that we remove the outer contaminants of whatever item it is? So I mean, even vegetables, of course we need to wash the vegetables even before we eat them raw in salads. So that also probably removes the contaminants, be it actual soil or the microscopic ones like bacteria.
Yeah.
I'm not fully on board with this though, because I still think not all salmon are sushi salmon.
Okay.
So you're more for the idea that it's what they eat and it's the conditions that these animals grow in.
Yeah, or vegetables.
So maybe let's just summarize all the questions we have today. I think we
Yeah.
are so confused. So basically, the main question was how come we can eat pork, and we'll further look into why we can eat some meats raw versus some meats that have to be completely cooked.
Yeah.
And is it whether it's because there's contaminants outside, or whether it's really the things inside the meat that are bad for us? And is there different sushi grades? I think sushi lovers would love this answer, or maybe actually they already know.
Yeah, most likely. Yeah.
And lastly, why we can eat certain vegetables raw. Actually, whether are there any vegetables that we can just eat? We have to cook them. Whether there are any vegetables we have to cook. And if not, why can we eat some raw and why do we have to cook some? Great. We'll see you in part 2. Welcome back to part 2. So for today, we'll be answering a few questions on like raw meats. And firstly, is the contaminations from the inside or the outside?
Yeah, so I looked into this question. Basically, the answer is both, depending on the type of bacteria or parasite that is present. So for bacteria, it's usually from external sources.
External sources like the knife that they use or the preparation board that they are cutting on.
So these bacteria are typically found in animal guts or even in our own gut. So there's also this entire topic on the human gut microbiome that kind of tells us about like, how important all this bacteria is and whether or not it's essential for life, and it's quite interesting. So maybe we can talk about it at some point in time. But
basically all these microbes help us, the beneficial ones at least, help us digest things and help us regulate the conditions of the gut such that to make it extremely optimum at digesting our food and basically doing its job.
And all,
absorbing nutrients from the food that we've eaten and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. So animals like pigs, cows, all of them also have these kind of bacteria in their gut. And so when meats are being processed and the intestines are not removed in a very clean way, all these bacteria from their gut can get contaminated on the meat.
So is this only when we eat their guts or like
no
in general all their meats?
Yeah, so it can be either when the guts are not cleaned properly and then are not cooked properly, then we might get it. Or when the meat processing plants are removing these guts, maybe they just lump the guts and the meat together, and then the bacteria might remain on the meat.
So it's like cross-contaminating the meats that we actually eat from the gut, the bacteria from the guts.
Exactly. So that bacteria is actually not found in the meats.
Oh.
Yeah, but
in the meats that we buy and eat, not in the meats that are at the meat processing facility.
Yeah, in a sense. So the thing about it is this type of contamination can occur at any point in time in the processing. It doesn't have to be at the meat processing plant. It can also be that the people cooking, maybe they never wash their hands properly after they do their business in the toilet. Yeah, and cause these kind of contaminations on the food, right? So that's the outside part. So those are mainly bacteria. So like salmonella, stuff like that. Those are the major ones that cause food poisoning. Then there's also parasites. So parasites are a bit different. Yeah,
the Korean movie. Okay.
It's a really disturbing movie, honestly. But also good. Whatever.
Yeah, it's great. Watch it.
Yeah, y'all should watch Parasite if y'all haven't. So for parasites, it's a bit different because parasites can actually be found inside the meats. But that's just the nature of parasites and how they work. So even in humans, when we get parasites, and they are usually from contaminated food or dirty food or whatever, these parasites can enter our bodies through our small intestines and lay dormant in our muscles. And so in animals, when these parasites are present, then they would be found in the meat.
But how do these parasites get into the meat? Like from the animals eating contaminated stuff?
Yeah. Or animals that are dirty. So like pigs that wallow in mud or animals that tend to hang out in swamps and stuff like that.
And like the parasite can enter their skin.
Yeah. So
into their meat.
So it depends on the parasite.
Depends on the type
most
of
the parasites that we see inside meats are nematodes, roundworms, tapeworms. So all these worms entered through the digestive system from the mouth into the small intestines. And then they might enter the body through the small intestines. As in, it's just part of their natural life cycle. Yeah.
And how can we prevent?
So the easiest way is to always cook your meats.
So heat is the most effective way at killing all these bacteria and parasites.
Yeah. So for stuff like pork, beef, and fish, a minimal temperature of 63 degrees Celsius or 145 degrees Fahrenheit. Ground meats, so all these like minced meats, either minced beef or minced pork, because these kind of stuff usually contain all different types of meats and you don't really know where these meats come from.
Yeah, from different parts of the animal.
Yeah. So it's very easy to contaminate. So it needs slightly higher at about 71 degrees Celsius or 160 degrees Fahrenheit. And lastly, poultry. So the birds, the chicken, turkey, duck, yeah. They generally need slightly higher, like 74 degrees Celsius or 165 degrees Fahrenheit, because birds themselves are natural reservoirs for a lot of different types of viruses that can infect humans. And so poultry, we need to cook at a higher temperature lah. Yeah. And that's why we see, even though it's called salmonella, it's more common in raw chicken.
Yeah.
So that's the reason behind it lah. Yeah. So I guess moving on to a related question would be the different types of meats, right? Whether or not one is more likely to be more dangerous to eat raw versus another type.
Yeah, so Zhao Yong covered a lot about like why we cannot eat raw meats. Basically, all the types of parasites and things that can cause illnesses in us. So one of the questions was, why can we eat raw beef but not so much of raw pork or chicken? So basically, what Zhao Yong said, pigs are generally a little bit more dirty in terms of what they eat as well. So they they are kind of like omnivores. They like to eat anything, I guess, rotten foods, also like meats or vegetables. They eat both. So because of that, all these parasites might get into them more easily. Whereas for beef, which is from cows, right? They usually like graze the grass and whatever, things that come with the grass. Yeah. So generally, their bodies are also, their stomachs, their guts are able to process all these other things that are found in grass. So they generally can like deal with all these parasites that could be present in what they eat. And so their meats are cleaner. Also, beef is tougher, it's denser. Yeah. So parasites cannot really penetrate through as compared to other kinds of meat. So when you talk about beef, like usually the parasites or these things are found on the outside, on the outermost layer of the meats. And that's why when you talk about like, maybe cooking your steak medium rare, they usually just char the outside a bit. And that's enough.
That'll be enough.
Yeah, that's enough.
So just to kill everything that's on the outside.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wait, do y'all think it's just something that ended up happening because people were like, oh, beef, I don't need to cook so much and then I don't get diarrhea, but then pork, I need to cook thoroughly, then I won't get...
Yeah, I'm pretty sure, I'm guessing people like discovered it over time.
Oh.
Based on maybe stories on like...
Yeah.
Trial and error.
Yeah, trial and error. You go toilet. But I mean... you still have to be careful about beef sometimes. Some studies have found that there's still these kind of parasites or bacteria in their beef, depending on the processing company, where it comes from. Yeah. Also, there's the thing about meat sources. So for cows, let's say they come from places that only feed them grains. This would affect how healthy their immune system would be. So if they only eat grains, they wouldn't be exposed to a lot of different parasites. And therefore, their immunity will not be built up as strongly. I mean, if you talk about infections, the more infections you get, your body becomes more immune. It kind of figures out how to like deal with different kinds of infections. So same thing. So for cows, when they are freely roaming at the grass, they will build up a very healthy immune system. And so its meats are generally like cleaner to eat raw. So for chickens, there's such thing nowadays called pasteurized chickens, which essentially means that they're grass-fed. So because they eat a bigger variety of food compared to chicken feed only, this also gives them a stronger immune system, and therefore like pasteurized chicken is considered better than like normal, cleaner normal chicken. But of course, like some people eat raw pork because they get the pork from a factory or plant that raises the pig in a controlled environment, and these should be safer to eat. And I guess, the companies that are producing these kind of raw meats would take precautions and do their tests on whether like the meat is clean enough to eat raw. So do your homework. And the last point is preparation, which Zhao Yong has already covered. So grounded meat versus whole meat slices. The contamination from mixing different kind of meat. And I guess like, maybe it's good to have meat chopping board versus a vegetable chopping board at home. I don't know if y'all do this.
Oh, yeah. My parents have that and
Same.
I kind of adhere to it too.
Yeah. And maybe just to highlight one thing about pink pork. So some people have this misconception that pink pork is bad. But the thing is like pork changes color when it's exposed to oxygen. This is a process known as oxidation.
Yeah.
And it occurs at higher temperatures. So when there isn't enough oxygen, like when you smoke a ham, for example, the pork turns pink. And so you can actually eat these pink porks because the main idea is not the color of the pork, but whether you kill the parasite at a high enough temperature, which was what was covered, the temperature you reach to kill the parasite. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. I never thought about ham. I just always thought it was, the processing that made the color weird.
Yeah, and I never really drew the link between like ham and pork, like the same thing, just different color. But let's talk about fish then.
Okay, so you guys went into how high you should heat the meats that we eat. So, example, different kind of pork or poultry, they have different temperatures. So we were talking about sushi-grade, and as you know, sushi is raw, right?
Yeah.
So actually, sushi-grade is born out of a marketing term. It's not so much a grade that the FDA actually stamps on a product.
Oh.
Yeah, so it actually doesn't determine the quality of the fish the way that the US Department of Agriculture grades beef. So however, it signifies that the seller has judged it safe to eat the fish raw. So the claim is only as trustworthy as the seller. Going the other extreme, the processing matters when you eat raw fish.
Yeah.
So the best way to get rid of the parasites in the raw fish is to freeze at minus 20 degrees Celsius. Yeah, so freezing also limits bacterial growth, but it does not kill all the bacteria.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Are our freezers at minus 20 like in our homes? Are they?
The ones on top, I think, are supposed to be minus 20.
Some freezers don't go that low actually. I'm not sure. It depends on your freezer at home, I guess.
So it's more of the company producing these.
Yeah, so most sushi restaurants and reputable fish markets, they have what's called a super freezer.
Yeah.
And it can go to as low as minus 51 degrees Celsius.
Minus
I guess
50.
the whole thing is the lower you go, the more you kill all these dangerous things. So after processing, the supply chain and the vendor also matters. So experts advise that raw fish should be refrigerated or displayed under a thick bed of ice.
Yeah.
And you should never leave the fish out of the fridge for more than 1 or 2 hours because as we know, bacteria can multiply quickly at room temperature.
Oh.
Yeah, so additionally, the food preparation tools and utensils should also be properly cleaned to avoid any contamination. So this is the same with any meat that you eat. And another helpful pointer when you are going to buy fish is that it doesn't smell sour or overly fishy.
Yeah, I mean, fishy fish, who likes it?
I mean, I personally don't like it. If you like it, good for you,
Okay, so if you want to eat raw fish but you're still kind of worried about it, some people either marinate or brine or cold smoke the fish. So while all these may reduce the risk of infection, the most important thing is the quality of fish that you start out with. So what they advise is just to make sure you know who is selling you the fish, so whether you can trust them.
Like a fish farm compared to like fishing from the ocean. Is it?
As in the processing?
It's more the processing, so the fish market, I would say.
Okay.
Yeah. Another thing to note is that people with weak immune systems are more susceptible to infections. So, like we mentioned in the first part, in pregnant women specifically, infection by this bacteria called Listeria has been shown to cause fetal death. Yeah. So that's why there's that advisory for pregnant women not to eat raw fish, or at least to stay away as much as they can.
Yeah.
So besides all the bacteria and parasites that we talked about, raw fish also may contain toxic heavy metals such as mercury, which I think we also mentioned in the first part, which is commonly found in raw fish, and it may harm a developing baby's brain. So that's why there's all these advisories out there.
Moving on, what about vegetables?
Okay, so the common misconception that we always hear a lot about raw vegetables is that they are healthier for you. So I'm sure you have heard that raw vegetables contain more nutrients which could be lost after cooking them.
Yes, I hear that so often.
It leached into the water or something.
Yeah, exactly. So whilst this is true, science has shown that it is not just about what you eat, but what you absorb.
Okay.
So therefore, more nutrients does not always equal healthier. So what some vegetables lose in nutrients after cooking, others become more available for your body to use, as in the nutrients itself.
Yay!
So the idea is that even if I have more of one nutrient, it doesn't mean my body can take up that nutrients.
Yes, exactly. So not all vegetables are built the same. They have different vitamin and mineral makeup that will affect whether it is healthier to be eaten raw or to be eaten cooked. So some vegetables have been shown to be better when eaten raw, such as bell peppers, onions, and garlic.
Garlic.
Onion.
Onion.
Oh, yes. I knew that this was the reaction. So garlic contains nutrients and sulfur compounds that have been shown to promote heart health and have cancer-fighting effects. And these nutrients are absorbed at a higher amount when eaten raw. So what about vegetables that should be eaten cooked? So the simple answer is that cooking certain vegetables cause some nutrients to be more readily available. Like what we said, right? So for your body to use.
Yes.
So you remember how we were talking about spinach? So Zhao Yong mentioned in the previous section that spinach contains folic acid, which is important for making DNA
It's
in
good
your
for
body.
pregnant women, folic acid.
Because it's important for making DNA.
Oh, right. Yeah, makes sense.
So it's one of the building blocks of DNA. So steaming spinach actually allows it to retain its folate content.
Ooh.
And then on top of that, spinach also contains this other thing called oxalic acid, which affects the body's absorption of calcium and iron.
Yeah.
So calcium and iron, which you know is important for bones
Yeah.
and your blood.
Blood. Yeah.
So steaming the spinach, besides retaining the folate, also reduces this oxalic acid. So it improves your body's absorption of calcium and iron.
Which is also good for pregnant women.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Pregnant women lose a lot of calcium.
Yeah.
So spinach. No sushi, but just eat spinach.
Yes. Papai. Become papai.
Yeah. Okay, so other vegetables that may be more nutritious when cooked are tomatoes, which release this antioxidant called lycopene when cooked. So similarly, cooking makes carotenoids more readily available when cooked. So carotenoid, which are responsible for the orange color in carrots, is also shown to have anti-cancer properties.
Oh, so we shouldn't be eating raw carrots?
Okay, so the thing is, there is still carotenoids in raw carrots, right? But it's more readily available when cooked.
Oh man, I really
Don't be a rabbit.
really like raw carrots.
Ew.
All the articles I've read, they said eating more vegetables is just generally better for you. So if you like raw carrots and you're not going to eat raw, and you're not going to eat cooked carrots, just eat more raw carrots. You know, that's fine.
Yep.
So other than releasing nutrients, another reason for that some vegetables are better when cooked is because heating them up makes it easier on your digestive system and easier on you in general. So cooking has been shown to aid chewing and make vegetables more palatable.
Definitely.
Yeah. As we mentioned, have you ever tried eating raw broccoli or cauliflower?
Hate raw cauliflower.
It's not fun,
Hate raw
right?
cauliflower.
So cooking also increases the digestibility of some vegetables. So some vegetables may also contain compounds that cause bloating, gas, and other digestive related problems. So example, something that we usually eat cooked is potatoes.
French fries.
Yeah, exactly. So raw potatoes actually contain raw resistant starch. So this resistant starch can actually make you gassy and bloated. So that's why it's better to eat it cooked. Yeah, so that's the breakdown between some raw versus cooked. The short answer is it depends.
Wow, so I think we've learned a lot today. I think it's full of information. I hope we all learned something. And stay tuned for the next episode. Meanwhile, follow us on Twitter or on Instagram at The Lab Doctors.
Yeah, or follow us on Spotify and give us a comment on YouTube or DM us on Instagram if you have any questions.
Oh, and if you do have questions, you can also email us at thelabdoctors@gmail.com if you want to ask us anything about what we've talked about or you have any suggestions for new topics.
Bye.